What's going on YouTube? It's the Middle School Math Man. Now this video is going to be a very important video just on basic factoring. So there's a couple different forms of factoring. But this is just going to be the very basic, intro to factoring video. So before we actually get into some problems like 1 through 6 here, we need to talk about a couple of things. So first of all, it's important to notice how these are all in this similar form. They are in this form which I'm underlining in green. I didn't mean to cross it out. Underlining there in green. ax squared plus bx plus c. So that is the factoring form, or whatever you want to call it, ax squared plus bx plus c. So you're going to see why those letters are important here in a second when we get down to here. So let's just look at two examples real quick. So it's important to realize what each of these numbers represent. So ax squared plus bx plus c. As you can see, this first example is in that form. So in this example, 4 is going to be a, negative 14 is going to be b, and 5 will be c. If we look at the second example, the number in front of that x squared is negative 1. That negative 1 is a. In this case, we don't have a b term. 14 is c. So that's important because what I start here in green, I'm also starting in red. This is so important. You're going to hear me say it a lot. To factor a trinomial in the form above, you must find two integers. Again, integers are just positive or negative whole numbers. Two integers that, very important, multiply to c, so here are those letters coming into play, and add to b. I'm going to say it again. To factor a trinomial of the form above, you must find two integers that multiply to c and add to b. So what exactly does that mean? Well, let's look at a couple problems. Let's start with number 1. So, if you remember back to foiling, when we multiplied two binomials, we got something that's in this form. So factoring, we're basically doing the opposite of FOIL. We're undoing FOIL. So we're going to start with something that looks like what we would get when we FOIL, and then we're going to put it back into its binomial times binomial form. So I'm just going to go ahead. I know that my final answer is going to be in this binomial times binomial form, so I'm going to write my two sets of parentheses. And it's x squared, so I know I'm going to have an x in both parentheses. Now, two integers that multiply to c and add to b. Well, in this example above, you need to be able to recognize that 20 is c and 9 is b. So start thinking in your head, what are two numbers that multiply to 20? Well, we have 20 times 1, 10 times 2, 5 times 4. Those are all options. But those two numbers also have to add to b. So it's two numbers that multiply to 20 and add to 9. So obviously 20 and 1 don't add to 9. 10 and 2, that adds to 12, not 9. However, 5 and 4 adds to 9. So that's going to be our answer, x plus 5 times x plus 4. Now the way to check. You could FOIL this, because we took our foiled form, and then we got our two binomials. So if we want to check, we could FOIL, and we're going to get x squared plus 4x plus 5x plus 20. And then if we simplified that, we would get x squared plus 9x plus 20, which is what we started with. So that's just a quick way to check. Let's move on to number 2. It's x squared again. So now, two numbers that multiply to c and add to b. So think about two numbers that multiply to 12. 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 4 times 3. So you might be thinking in your head, it has to be 4 times 3 because they also have to add to 7. And you are right, x plus 4 times x plus 3 is going to be our answer. 4 times 3 is 12, 4 plus 3 is 7. I'm going to skip number 3, I'm going to go on to number 4. So we have our n's. This time it's n instead of x, but it's the same thing, it's just a different letter. What are two numbers? Now this one's a little bit more challenging because we have a negative 18. But just think, what are two numbers that multiply to negative 18? Well, you know, it could be 18 and 1, 9 and 2, 6 and 3. But if you think of all those combinations, it also has to add to 3. So it's going to be some version of 6 and 3. So it is either going to be negative 6 times 3, because that's negative 18, or it's going to be positive 6 times negative 3. Those are our two options, negative 6 times 3, or positive 6 and negative 3. So they have to add to positive 3, so it has to be positive 6 and negative 3, plus 6 minus 3, because that's the only way it adds to positive 3, is if the positive number is bigger. Number 6, we have h's now, starting with my binomials. So two numbers that multiply to 18, we have 18 times 1, 9 times 2, 6 times 3. So it looks like 6 and 3 is going to be our combination because 6 plus 3 equals 9. So that is what that answer is going to be. So those examples right there were just your basic A is positive 1. So just your basic factoring video.